Welcome to chapter 9. Revelation chapter 9 is a very pivotal chapter. Now things begin to change. Things are going to really look bad from here on for the next few chapters. But what we want to do is, just as a quick recap, remember we started with the 7 seals. These are the seals that were on the scroll that God handed the Son, who was worthy because he was slain, and he bought for God all of the people in mankind who accepted his Son, Jesus Christ. Okay, that's how we get to heaven. The seventh seal opens up the 7 trumpets, and we've already listened to some of those, and now we've had the first 4 trumpets sound, and here we're going to pick up on the 5th one. Now, there's a little symbolism that goes in, and I'm going to give you a little bit of information. It starts off talking about a star that fell from heaven, and this star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. Remember, in Revelation 1, Jesus said, I have the keys to heaven and earth. He has the keys to this. So it is Jesus who gives him the key. The star is referring to Satan, and that's what we're going to be looking at. Also, you will notice this, if you remember the book of Job and how God worked with Satan and let Satan do things to Job, but he didn't let him do other things. Well, that's what you see here, is Satan is going to be allowed to do some things to mankind, but not all of mankind. And we'll talk a little bit more when we finish reading it, but we're going to read it straight through. All right, chapter 9, 1. The 5th angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. When he opened the abyss, smoke rose from it like smoke from a giant furnace. The sun and the sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss, and out of the smoke locusts came down on the earth, and they were given power like that of scorpions on the earth. They were told not to harm the grass or any plant or tree, but only those people who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads. They were not allowed to kill them, but only to torture them for 5 months. And the agony they suffered was like that of the sting of the scorpion when it strikes. During those days, the people will seek death, but will not find it. They will long to die, but death will elude them. The locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like a woman's hair, and their teeth like lion's teeth. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. And they had tails with stingers like scorpions, and in their tails they had power to torment people for 5 months. They had as a king over them the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek, Apollyon, that is, destroyer. The first woe is past. 2 other woes are yet to come. The 6th angel sounded his trumpet, and I heard a voice coming from the 4 horns of the golden altar that is before God. It said to the 6th angel who had the trumpet, release the 4 angels who are bound on the great river Euphrates. And the 4 angels who had been kept ready for this very hour and day and month and year were released to kill 1/3 of mankind. The number of mounted troops was twice of 10,000 times 10,000, 200 million. I heard their number. He obviously couldn't have counted that high in that time period. The horses and riders I saw in my vision looked like this. Their breastplates were fiery red, dark blue, and yellow as sulfur. Their heads of the horses resembled the heads of lions, and out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and sulfur. 1/3 of mankind was killed by the 3 plagues of fire, smoke, and sulfur that came out of their mouths. The power of the horses was in their mouths and in their tails, for their tails were like snakes, having their heads with which they inflict injury. The rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues still did not repent of the work of their hands. They did not stop worshiping demons and idols of gold and silver and bronze and stone and wood, idols that cannot see or hear or walk. Nor did they repent of their murders, their magic arts, and their sexual immorality or their thefts. Okay, this really has some things that a lot of times when you think about it, you think of symbolism, and it means something. And in a lot of cases, it's really just a guy from the 1st century AD trying to describe something 2,000 plus years into the future. How could you do that? If you were to suddenly be transported 2,000 years into the future from now, can you imagine? Just think of our lifetimes, what you have seen happen. You have seen little things take the place of phones with lines. Who would have imagined just 30 to 40 years ago being able to have a phone you put in your hand and be able to look at it and have a FaceTime call with somebody all the way around the world in another country, and it not be costing you $100 a minute? And it's instantaneous. You don't have any lag time. And I remember when we had the first Desert Storm War, you'd sit and watch these broadcasters from Iraq on there, and they would talk. You'd see their lips move, but you wouldn't see anything. They would be asked questions, and you'd wait 5 to 10 seconds for an answer. Now, everything's instantaneous. Who would have imagined that? Who would have imagined 150 years ago that we would be able to get on an airplane and fly anywhere in the world in a matter of hours? Sometimes it may take a couple of days, but realistically, when we look at where we're going, it's just unbelievable what we've been able to do. So now, when you look at this, one of the things that, and I've heard this discussed before in verse 7, when it says, the locust looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads, they wore something like crowns of gold. Now, what I want you to get in your mind as we read through this a second time is these helicopter gunships that we see. A helicopter gunship, and you picture the pilot. They have their helmets on, and all you see is their faces. If you are John looking at a helicopter gunship, you have no idea what it is, but this description fits it to a T. May not be it, maybe something totally different because it could be 500 years from now. But if it was now, that would be what's matching it up. On their heads, they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had breastplates and breastplates of iron. On the sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. And I know if you've been anywhere near some of these military helicopters taking off, if you are anywhere near them, you know that that sound is just unbelievably loud with those propellers really chopping up the air. All right. And then you think about the gunships and all of the guns that they have on them and the things that they can do. This is what they are capable of doing and inflicting incredible damage to people and the places that they live. So it's just an idea, and it's just something that I've seen and I've heard other people mention, and so I thought I'd get you just thinking about that. So you have to look, is it symbolism, meaning something else that totally are unrelated, or is it just his description of what he is being allowed to see? And that's what it sounds like he's given us, is his description. But then the last part of chapter 9 is so powerful. The rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues still did not repent of the work of their hands. That's just incredible to have seen all of these things take place and still not repent. Remember, this is the second time that a third of mankind has been killed. Now, a lot of people were concerned about the plagues with COVID, and they were talking about 1 million here and 1 million in this country and 5 million in this country, or 10 million dying as a result of COVID. And they were thinking that was one of the plagues. A third of mankind. We are at over 7 billion people. That's 2 billion people, not million people dying. That is a gigantic difference in numbers as to what you would have. Now, it could be that there are going to be many other plagues that are going to come, and that is going to add it up. But anyhow, I wanted to cover chapter 9. Chapter 9 is so exciting. And next we get into the angel and the little scroll in chapter 10. But thanks again for watching, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this. Hope you're getting as excited as I am.